Good morning. This is English 8 for March the 30th, for Monday. I need you to turn in your book to page 205, and you're going to need a couple of sheets of paper. So go ahead and take those out. Today we're going to talk about diagramming. Diagramming adverb clauses. Now let's review for just a moment. Remember, a clause is a group of words that must have a subject, a verb, and it does not express a complete thought. Therefore, it's dependent. And it has to be with an independent clause. An independent clause has a subject and a verb, but it does express a complete thought. Independent clauses are our main sentence. Dependent clauses are the ones that add to our sentence and make it more interesting, but they cannot stand alone. Remember, an adverb clause is going to begin with a subordinate conjunction, okay? So we're going to look for that subordinate conjunction, and then we're going to circle it. And then we're going to find subjects and verbs, and we'll see very clearly two different clauses, one independent and one dependent. Look at page 205. Here we have an adverb clause that modifies a verb. The sentence is, he left when I arrived. When is my subordinate conjunction. My verbs are left and arrived. Who left? He left. Who arrived? I arrived. So we diagram the subject and verb of our main sentence, of our independent sentence. He left. Then, right below it, we diagram our subject and a verb of our dependent clause. I arrived. Now, how do I connect them? You'll see there that there's a dotted line. You're going to take the dotted line from the verb in the dependent clause. That's the second one on the bottom. From that verb up to the word that it modifies. Most of the time, that's going to be the other verb. As you see a dotted line between the two verbs in number one. On that dotted line, we write our subordinating conjunction. In this case is when. Look at the next one. Here we have an adverb clause that modifies an adjective. Okay? David is sure that he will attend the banquet. That is our subordinating conjunction. Our verb is. Who is? David is. David is sure. Sure. It describes David, so it's our predicate adjective. That's what we have in our first diagram, our just normal sentence. Now we have that clause, that he will attend the banquet. You probably would put brackets around that to help you whenever you're diagramming. Okay, so we have he is our subject of the clause. Will attend is the verb. He will attend who? He will attend what? He will attend banquet. Since banquet is our complement, it goes on the end of our line. And because we have an action verb, that the line up and down is straight up and down to separate our verb and our direct object. Now, the is an adjective describing banquet. How do I connect these two? Using my subordinating conjunction, I'm going to put it on a dotted line. Connect it from the verb of my dependent clause to what it describes. Okay, it describes in this case the predicate adjective sure. David is sure that he will attend the banquet. Why? He is sure why? He's sure because he's sure that he will attend the banquet. So this clause describes the word sure. So we put a dotted line there. Look at the next one. The adverb clause modifying an adverb. Emily typed faster than Amy did. Okay? My clause is than Amy did. And that's an elliptical clause, of course. Okay? So Amy is my subject. Typed is the verb. Who? There is no complement there, so we go to our dependent clause and we say Amy did. Amy did. Okay? Now, looking back at your independent clause. Amy typed how? She typed faster. So faster is an adverb on a diagonal line. How do I connect these two sentences? From the verb of my dependent clause, what does it describe? Well, it's the other part of that comparison, isn't it? Amy did talks about faster. So we're going to make up our line our dotted line to the word faster. Notice that in this case, it actually looks like the backwards 7 there of a dotted line because it still has to go out in order to connect to that adjective or adverb, sorry. Adverb elliptical clause. He can run faster than I. Okay? The clause is faster than I. Okay? He can run is our subject and verb. He can run how? He can run faster. Look at your dependent clause. Faster than I. I is the subject. Notice that I have an X there for the verb because I don't have a verb there. Okay? Because I am sharing he can run faster than I can, faster than I can run. So that's why that is, those X's are there. Because it's elliptical, it means I've left them out because there's no chance of any confusion. But I have to represent them on my diagram, which I do with an X. Let's go to the bottom to our exercise. After they trusted Christ, new converts were baptized. Well, first, what's my clause? Put brackets around your clause. After they trusted Christ. Put brackets around that. Now, inside your clause, what is your subject and verb? They trusted. Go to your independent clause. The new converts were baptized. What's your subject and verb? Converts were baptized. Okay? Now, what I want you to do is go to your piece of paper and I want you to diagram your subject and verb of your independent clause. Okay? So our independent clause is converts were baptized. Converts were baptized. Now, go to your dependent clause. Go to your dependent clause. And I want you to diagram your subject and verb. They trusted. Okay? They trusted. Now, let's go back to our independent clause, okay? The clause is the new converts were baptized. Where does the word the? It is an adjective describing converts. What about new? It is also an adjective describing converts. So the and new. Go to your dependent clause now. It says they, after they trusted Christ. They trusted who? They trusted what? They trusted Christ. Christ is our direct object. So put it on our direct object. Why did we know it was a direct object? Because the word trusted is an action verb. Now I have to connect my independent and my dependent clauses together. Okay? How do I do that? Let's look at the sentence. After they trusted Christ, what does that tell me about? It tells me when they were baptized, correct? So draw a dotted line from the verb of the dependent clause to what we just said it modified, which is were baptized. So draw a dotted line from verb to verb. And on that dotted line, write the word after. Okay? Now let's look at the second one. He stood quietly as if nothing had happened. What's your clause? Put brackets around it. As if nothing had happened. Put brackets around that in the words. Now, look at your independent clause only. He stood quietly. What's the verb? Stood. Write it on your diagram. Okay? Ask yourself, who or what stood? He. Okay? He stood. There are no complements in this sentence. So he stood quietly. What is quietly? Quietly tells me how he stood. So on a diagonal line understood, write quietly. Now go to inside your brackets, go inside the clause. Okay? The clause again was as if nothing had happened. What is the verb? Had happened. So put had happened. Okay, now what's the subject? Who or what had happened? Nothing. Nothing had happened. So that is my subject. I need to connect my dependent clause to my independent clause. Okay, so let's look at our sentence. He stood quietly. Now, what does as if nothing had happened tell me? It tells me how he stood. Okay, how did he stand? He stood as if nothing had happened. Okay, so you go to your dependent clause, to the verb, draw a dotted line to the word in the independent clause that it describes. In this case, it's verb to verb. Okay, as if nothing had happened tells me how he stood. On your dotted line, write your subordinating conjunction, as if. Let's look at the third one. If you want a good grade, you must earn it. Okay, what's the clause? If you want a good grade, put brackets around that. Look at the independent clause. You must earn it. What's the verb? Must earn. So up here, I'm going to write must earn. Okay? Who or what must earn? You. You must earn. You must earn what? You must earn it. Now, what is the it? It is a direct object because this is an action verb. Okay? Now go to your dependent clause. If you want a good grade, what's the verb? Want. Who or what want? You. You want what? You want grade. Grade is our direct object. What kind of grade do you want? You want a grade. And you want a good grade. Okay? So now we've diagrammed our independent clause and we've diagrammed our dependent clause. Now we have to say, what does the dependent clause, what does it describe? Look back at your book. If you want a good grade, you must earn it. What does if you want a good grade tell us about? It tells us that you must earn it. Okay? So we're going to make a dotted line between the two verbs. Okay? Between the two verbs. And on that line, we're going to write the word if. If is our conjunction, our subordinating conjunction. Look at number 4. As a man thinks, he eventually speaks. And that is such a true statement. What you think about is what's in your heart. And what's in your heart, guys, will come out your mouth. I hope what's coming out of your mouth while you're at home with your parents is respect and love. And that you're being kind and considerate and thoughtful of the people that are taking care of you. It's the right Christian thing to do. Be respectful. Honor your parents. Honor them. Say, well, I don't agree with them. That wasn't the question. That also wasn't the command. God says you need to honor them. Okay? Let's look at number 4. As a man thinks, he eventually speaks. What's my clause? As a man thinks. Put brackets around it. Now look at your independent clause. He eventually speaks. Your verb is speaks. Who or what speaks? He. He speaks when? Eventually. I'm going to run in the next one there. Sorry about that. Now look at your clause. As a man thinks. What's the verb? Thinks. What is your subject? Man. A describes the man. Now, how do I put my two sentences together? What does as a man thinks? What does it describe? It describes how he speaks. So we're going to take the verb from the always start with the verb of the dependent clause. And in this case, it goes up to the verb of the independent clause. Okay, that wasn't very good dotted line. Okay, and our word in this case is as. Okay, when you diagram an adverb clause, you first mark the adverb clause in your sentence. Diagram the independent clause. Below the independent clause, diagram your clause. Following all the same rules. Find the verb, find the subject, find the complement, put your prepositional phrases on, everything there. Then connect your dependent clause to your independent clause by drawing a dotted line from the verb in the dependent clause to whatever it modifies in the independent clause. Tonight, for homework, I want you to diagram 5 through 10. We are going to be doing these together. I want you to diagram them because you're going to have a quiz over it, okay? So make sure you diagram them. Mark them in your book. Find your clause. Think it through, but diagram them on a piece of paper. Remember, this is a piece of paper I will need you to turn in to me next Thursday. On Thursday, if you are in Chicago, Brother John Francis will be coming by and picking up all of your papers for me. If you are an area kid, you will need to drop them off. I'm here at the school every day from 8 o'clock, 8:30, I'm in staff meeting, so from 8:30 usually until 3 or 4, but if you're coming after 1, you probably need to call and just make sure that someone's here, okay? But you'll need to bring in all of your papers that you have done for me next week, okay? Or this week, actually, okay? All right, have a great day. I hope you have a good weekend. Make sure that you diagram, do your English homework that is online because it is a creative writing assignment, and take your quiz. Have a great weekend.